Spyro the Dragon is a beloved franchise that needs no introduction, being one of the most recognisable icons of the PlayStation brand in the 90s and producing a successful trilogy remake in 2018. However, in the eyes of Activision Blizzard, he seems to play second fiddle to his marsupial cousin Crash Bandicoot. With the continued success of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, and Crash Team Rumble on the horizon, many avid fans have been asking the same question: is Spyro next? So today, let's hypothetically say a new Spyro game is in the works. What should it be like, and what direction should Activision take? Here are my thoughts. Being such a beloved franchise with a dedicated fan base, Spyro fans have been through a lot in the last 30 years. From seeing the rise and demise of their favourite purple dragon, they're both enthusiastic and very cautious about its future. Toys for Bob struck gold with the Reignited trilogy and managed to perfectly recapture the heart and soul of the original games, breathing new life into them whilst also trimming the fat of its more frustrating elements and keeping what made the original so special. Going forward, I strongly believe that Toys for Bob are the perfect developers to develop the Spyro series, as they have been working with the brand since 2011's Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, and, love it or hate it, those games garnered a huge audience and introduced a new generation of fans to the Purple Dragon.
The tool Spyroscope actually was able to extract the placement, the scale, the actual the vertex information of the levels, and we actually did frame analysis on the jump itself as well. So like at frame 3, how high is he? What's his speed?
Spyroscope was a tool made to count the timing of jumps, charges, glides, and distances between geometry, so that the developers could gain a scope of the worlds and the fluidity of movement to be able to faithfully recreate them in the new engine. This allowed a greater level of accuracy and aids in the games feeling faithful to the original titles, so that someone who had played Spyro decades prior could easily pick up a level during a playthrough of the remake, and their muscle memory of the original titles would kick in. This was also used for gem and enemy placement, speedway obstacles, and enemy behaviours, so that every minor detail matched what older fans remembered of the flow and gameplay of the worlds. Utilising this tool and the knowledge the team gained from faithfully recreating the games down to this level of accuracy invokes a level of trust that Toys for Bob have the knowledge, the experience, and the love for Spyro that would inspire them to make their game the absolute best it can be. Due to this and the success of the Reignited trilogy and Crash Bandicoot 4, they have demonstrated that they are a talented studio with an awareness of what made the original game so special. As outlined in the Art of Reignited book, they had to actively hold themselves back from going too overboard with ideas in their pursuit of maintaining that faithfulness to the original games. If Toys for Bob were given full reign on a brand new Spyro game in the style of Reignited, I think that they'd be able to maintain that level of quality and produce the best game we've had since the original trilogy.
These games are great for a reason. They did a whole bunch right. So let's do that right and respect the pieces that worked as well as they did.
Right. Or the initiative wasn't to change, right?
It was like honor first and then embellish where possible.
Right.
Back when they first released in the late 90s, the original trilogy were pioneers in making the most of the limitations of the PlayStation hardware. They were some of the first games to be able to render in an entire world with no fog effects, and still be able to see all the basic geometry of the world around you.
I had this idea that you could do a panoramic 3D engine on the Sony PlayStation, where there wouldn't be any fog in the distance. And I challenged Alex Hastings to create such an engine. In fact, I told him very specifically how to go about creating it. He blew me off and did something totally different. But it turned out much better than what I had in mind, because not only did you have these big, long views where anything in the universe could be seen from afar, but also he created an engine where you could have detail on the objects that were close. I think there's never been a console video game where you got both of those. He had to write some damn good code.
Because of this, the worlds are compact, bite-sized, but bursting with secrets and collectibles, so there's always something to find. Yet, due to their length and scope, you can easily run through a level in 10 to 30 minutes depending on your knowledge of the games, which makes for a very accessible pick up and play experience. In the modern age of gaming, developers seem to have the ideology that bigger is better, but as we've seen with some of the Spyro sequels, too big can lead to plain and empty environments with little cause or reason to explore. Maintaining that small size with minor expansions is the way forward, and if they wish to expand the scale of the worlds, then proportionately more secrets only accessible via power-up or an alternative character, such as the Sergeant Bird areas from Year of the Dragon, would be the correct way to make the levels feel fuller and promote organic exploration from the player. From the original trilogy to their wonderful recreations in Reignited, Spyro is known for its unique and magical art style. Even with the restrictions 3D gaming had in the 90s, Insomniac still managed to immerse you in the fantastical landscapes that you would expect zany dragons to live and thrive in. From floating islands to giant crystals and treasure hoards, there truly is nothing that feels more like a Spyro game than the foundation set in 1998. The only games that have even come close to recapturing the original vision are the Skylander series with their similar set pieces and visual aesthetic. By contrast, the Purple Dragon's features and environs become less whimsical and sometimes even creepy looking in the Universal sequel's attempts. Reading through the Art of Reignited book, it was clear that in their efforts to not stray too far visually from the source material, Toys for Bob had a lot of ideas that they had to rein in while reigniting the original games. However, after seeing them recreate every mundane dragon from the original into characters with their own personalities and idiosyncrasies, I am personally excited to see what they could do with the full creative control over a brand new game in the style and engine they have already produced for existing games. Within said book, Toys for Bob set themselves a list of goals that I believe still stand true to a potential sequel. The specific ones I feel are more relevant than ever are: stay true to the original, capture the magic of what it was like to play Spyro for the first time, create a believable fantasy fairy tale world by focusing on the storytelling and all aspects of visual design, and take every opportunity to inject fun into the world. Push playfulness and personality to the limits. Don't feel constrained by a formula. There is room for breadth within the style. The formula will squash delightful variety and discourage discovery. What we can take away from this list of goals are that whilst trying to retain the original's ambitious style, they felt that whilst the highest priority was to ensure that the games felt the way we saw them 25 years ago, and that if anything felt dated or unclear, could be reinterpreted into the new style they were creating for the new age of gaming that these games had to compete with, whilst prioritizing fun, playfulness, and storytelling. Each world should tell its own unique story in of itself, outside of the overarching plot, so that every area you visit feels real, fleshed out and lived in, as well as fun to traverse and explore. This is a very easy decision to make. Who better than Stuart Copeland to produce a new Spyro soundtrack? The drummer of The Police fame famously gave his flair to the soundtrack after playing through some earlier builds of the levels to give them each their own unique flair that perfectly matched the look and feel of each world specifically.
Now let's get some heavy metal going here. Okay. They pay me for this.
We haven't had his beautiful compositions grace our ears much since he produced the music for the original trilogy and Enter the Dragonfly. While he did assist with the new mixes for Reignited, having a brand new soundtrack for the new game from the legend himself would truly be a return to form that the series deserves. As for the sound design itself, whilst I still prefer the original jingles and effects of the older games, the new and refined sounds still feel like they very much belong. With a little more tweaking to sound a bit more whimsical, they could be a welcome addition to a new entry in the series. I also love the addition of a dynamic soundtrack that they featured within the Reignited trilogy. The music slowing down when you stop and take in the landscapes and atmosphere, but then will ramp up and become more bombastic as you charge and flame through the level is a touch I never realised I needed from these games. Spyro has a fun, yet simple gameplay loop. Kill enemies, collect gems, complete a minigame or two, and progress to the next level. While solid enough on its own, the sequels of the past have struggled to find their feet with a new twist or gimmick on the formula. I believe Spyro 2 handled the new gameplay element introduction best by presenting you with obstacles you could not progress past early on, and then giving you the means to proceed past these soon after, think swimming, climbing, and the head bash specifically. Whilst exploring the opening level, Glimmer, you encounter a ladder that you are unable to traverse with an extremely tempting power-up that, beyond the use of glitches, is completely inaccessible until you learn how to climb in the second hub world. Features like this gatekeep progression, and as long as they are not used excessively, can open up areas of already finished levels with new possibilities and secrets. The biggest issue developers seem to have is that Spyro has to walk on all four legs and cannot be allowed to fly freely outside of specific circumstances, such as the speedway levels or using flight power-up gates. This ultimately means that his arsenal is quite limited, which is where the elemental breaths come into the picture. First introduced in Year of the Dragon, these breaths have very edge case uses, such as opening doors, freezing enemies, or catching dragonflies and vanquishing enemies. Usually, you only need to use them to progress past certain locks in the world that require you to, for example, put out a fire or short circuit an electrical lock, but they have so much more potential. If they were given or unlocked periodically throughout the game, a la a Mario power-up, and allowed more manipulation of the environment, then they could prove to be a lot more useful and afford the player greater control and variety over their progression through a level. For example, if there is a small water basin that you can't quite jump out of to reach a ledge on the other side, the ability to freeze the water with your breath and jump from the top onto the ledge is an incredibly simple, yet not utilised idea. The potential for a properly developed system of elements is there, it just needs care and research to ensure that it doesn't become a nuisance to the end user experience. To conclude, I'd be ecstatic if Activision revealed a new Spyro game using the reignited pizza base, and I believe that with the right amount of love and care, and with Toys for Bob at the helm, we could get something truly exceptional, worthy of being ranked up there with the original trilogy. They just need to stick to what made the original so special, and not try to ambitiously reinvent the wheel that worked so well in the first place. I'm hoping that the radio silence that we've had for a Spyro project has been due to the studio carefully considering how to create the perfect follow-up to the Reignited trilogy, and to not just push out a quick sequel for easy profits. As eager as we may be for a new Spyro game, nobody wants a botched job quickly pushed out the door to appease the hundreds of "Where's Spyro 4?" comments they get on their social media platforms per day. Also, please Activision, do not call it Spyro 4. That joke was bad enough for Crash Bandicoot, we do not need it twice.
Hi, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of the mighty Kamina from Gurren Lagann. You are watching the Giant Fighting Robot channel. Like and subscribe, because that's the way Team Gurren rolls. Now let's see you grit those teeth. Don't believe in yourself. Believe in me. Believe in the Kamina. He's in you.